Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go more of the 4K collection. Today we're only going to do movies that have just the letter S starting with the title. Just because it's one letter, it's going to be lengthy. I mean, if you saw the when we just talked about the Blu-rays, I had a lot of movies that have S in them. S is a very popular letter to start with on a title on any movie. So without further ado, let's just begin. So starting off, we have a polarizing film, and that is Sausage Party. I would say it looks good on 4K, even though the animation's a bit on the lower budget size. I know a lot of people don't like this movie lately for some reason. I think because they just don't like the humor and it's just raunchy for the sake of being raunchy. But it's like I actually think there is some wit to it, and also it's like you're going to a movie that Seth Rogen is like completely creative control of. Like, what do you expect? Like, you really think that he's gonna suddenly change his type of writing style and humor? I don't know. I don't think so. Unless one day he does a complete out of the blue type of different movie. But other than that, it's a good movie. I think people like to hate on it just for the sake of hating on it. Because I guess it's popular to hate on things. So yeah, Sausage Party. Next up is Saving Private Ryan. Not much to say. It's a classic. I'm not gonna say it's my favorite Spielberg film, but it's still pretty good. Like, there's not much that's really wrong with it. Like, it's a pretty great like war movie. Personally, there are other war movies I'm more into because they're either shorter. Like, this is a long movie. It's almost 3 hours long. Like, I think it's a bit of an overkill film, but other than that, it's still like really well done. Next up, we have Scarface, fantastic movie. Al Pacino's fantastic in this. It's a very tragic story. A bit lengthy for sure. It's almost 3 hours as well. But I also think it feels like an epic. It feels like the rise and fall of a even though it's not based on a true story, I believe like it is still a like you get so invested into the story of Tony Montana. I hope they actually remaster that game, the Scarface game, that was like a non canon like sequel in a way. Like, I hope they do that one day. But other than that, Scarface is great, really good looking on 4K. Up next is Schindler's List. Not really much to say here. It is Spielberg's masterpiece. It's not exactly the most rewatchable movie that he has done, but it's not exactly like there's a reason why like it's considered like one of his best films ever made. And I wouldn't say it's my favorite film he's done, but it's definitely probably his best film that he's done. Like there's not much like I think everyone knows this movie. There's not much to really describe why it's that good. Next up, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Hot take. I'm not super in love with this movie as you may think. If you don't know Scott Pilgrim, it's set in Toronto, very cult classic. They did the Netflix series that is the same cast from the movie, but they do go in a different direction. I know they changed a lot of the story for that show, which I think is good. And honestly, from what I've heard of what they changed the story and everything, I think I would have preferred that than this. And the thing is, I will say this is a good movie, but I'm not the biggest fan of some of the aspects. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of Michael Cera's performance in the movie. I'm not the biggest fan. Like, he's good, but it's like the character is like completely different from how the show and the manga and the graphic novel depicts him as. And it's like, you have to sort of just buy the fact that this romance is just really amazing. And it's like, no, it's meant to be a fantasy movie, and that's fine. It's a fun movie regardless. It has some good jokes. Edgar Wright, did some creative stuff with the action and the style. I remember as a kid though, like people were like, this is the best video game movie, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, as a kid, I didn't really get what they're trying to say, and I felt like they meant it was an actual video game movie, but it wasn't. It was definitely like it's inspired by that stuff, and you have some references and stuff, but it's not like that. And also, it's just poor way. It's a poor way to advertise the movie. But in general, this is a very fun movie. There is a reason why it is a cult favorite. And it looks good in 4K. I think it's, I have it because it was cheap to get, as well as the fact that it's set in Toronto, so may as well pay respect. And I think it's good, but I don't think it's like that highbrow that I think people really love. I have to see the Netflix series, though. Up next is Shaft, 4K Criterion Collection. I love the Shaft movies, so it's like, not everyone's going to be like super won over by them. And to be fair, the original Shaft film, starring the late and great Richard Roundtree, it's not exactly a movie you can watch in 2024 and think, wow, this is a masterpiece of film. No, it was important because it's black exploitation. It's just that it was the time where black representation was needed, and they got it. And it's still a fun movie to watch, but it's not exactly, it's very low budget. The story is not exactly the most interesting. The only thing you really are getting out of it is that it is just Richard Roundtree's charisma. And he is, it's sad that he passed away, but I'm glad that he did all the Shaft movies at least. At least he appears in all the Shaft movies. Speaking of which, this doesn't just include the 4K of the movie, which looks really good considering how the cameras that they used were very low grade. But it also includes the second movie, Shaft's Big Score, which I actually think is better than this movie because they had more budget, the story got a bit more interesting, and the action actually had a bit more scale to it, which I found interesting. With that said, though, it's strange that they do not have the third movie, Shaft in Africa. If Shaft Goes to Africa or Shaft in Africa. And I think that movie is probably the most elusive Shaft film we will ever get because it's not in this collection. It hasn't been properly remastered. The only way you can find it is there's a triple pack of the first 3 movies on Blu-ray, which is not very easy to find, or it's really expensive. So yeah, overall the Shaft movies are good. This point of notice though, Shaft's Big Score is a Blu-ray. It is not a 4K, but the original is. So if you ever do want to seek this out, I would say get the Criterion because you get 2 movies for one, which is good because Criterion movies tend to be pricey for just 1 movie alone. So getting 2 movies, back to back, very good. I'm just going to get some water here. All right. Next up, we got Shazam. This is a great DC movie, very fun, filmed in Toronto, not set in, of course. No real issues I really had with the movie. No, not every joke works. I think, they could have had more of it, they could use more, like, no, I don't really have a big issue with this movie, actually. Like, I don't know. Some people don't like the tone. People prefer darker, serious, rather than goofy fun. But I think this is a movie where you do need the goofy fun. I will say, though, maybe they should have aged the characters down a bit, because having them as, early teens really messed up, how they age when they get to the sequel. They should have got a younger cast, because then you have, just a sec, the issue that runs into Shazam, Fury of the Gods. Yes, I have this on 4K. Looks good on 4K, and also I think this is a good movie. I think obviously not a lot of people went to see this movie because the DC universe was going to be rebooted. This movie wasn't like it's going to lead to anything, and the reviews coming out at the time were just sort of, average, not horrible, but just average. And to be fair, this is a decent movie. I think, it's not really on the level of the first film, but it's still a fun movie, like a fun superhero movie. But of course, we are getting to a fatigue of superhero genre right now. Also, this comes with a great commentary track by the director, who leads some insights into the production and everything. It's fun. Obviously, I think they should have again the kids aged too fast here. I think that going with original villains was a bit of a weird detour. I don't know why they couldn't just do the villain that they were setting up in the post-credit of the first film. I know the Black Adam thing didn't work out, but I don't know. It was a weird choice. Regardless, though, I think David F. Sandberg did a good job. He's a good, even though he started on horror, he's a good superhero director. I did hear he's going to do an Until Dawn film, which I'm not a fan of the game, but hopefully it works out for him. Next up is The Shining. I'm not super in love with this film as much as a lot of people really do. Maybe because it goes against the nature of the book, and how Jack Torrance is meant to be more sympathetic and stuff in the movie. He's just crazy, and as much as I love Nicholson in that movie, it's like I feel that they should have done a better job adapting the book. With that said, Stanley Kubrick does a great job with the direction and the music, everything. Like, it's super well made. It's just that I think they could have made the story a bit more like the book. And there's a reason why Dr. Sleep tried to sort of redeem the movie and the book and try to explain it, but it's also hard to do that. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of the third act of Dr. Sleep, the movie, because I think the book's third act is actually far more interesting. But, it is what it is. Still a good movie. Also, not really a horror movie, more of a psychological thriller. I don't know why people say it's a horror movie. It's the greatest horror movie ever made. It's like there's barely any scares in it. It's a psychological thriller. Here comes a masterpiece, and that is Shrek on 4K, the 20th anniversary edition. Here's something that's going to trigger me forever. For some reason, when they were releasing this first Shrek movie on 4K, they used a Blu-ray case, but it is a 4K. Oh, and it just fell out. Oh my god! But like that's the thing. It's like I don't know why. It's just this is just a Blu-ray case with the 4K. It feels cheap, even though it's like I think it was just sort of a odd production issue. Regardless, it is still the 4K. It's just going to look different. As obviously Shrek is a classic. There's nothing to really go on about. I think everyone knows who Shrek is and why it's a great movie. And the 4K looks really good. I heard there was some actual issues when they were trying to get into 4K. Like it's not the original source material, everything, but it looks good. Like I think the animation has sort of aged well in a way. Like I know some people like to make fun of it, but I think, granted, it's Shrek. I love the first Shrek movie. Up next, though, we have Shrek 2. I think everyone agrees. This is even better than the first film. It's a masterpiece, some people will say. I would say that. It's a great way to do a sequel. I don't really have much to say because I think everyone knows why Shrek 2 is a good movie. All right. However, then we have Shrek the Third. Hot take. I think this movie's okay. I wouldn't say it's a good movie. But like considering the fact that I compared this movie to like a lot of modern animated films, I'd watch this more often than those ones. Like yes, it is not a good follow up in terms of it's a lazy sequel. There's not a lot that happens. They could have done something different, something more impactful. But like it's still a fun movie. It's still Shrek. It's still entertaining. The cast of characters and everything like that. And like I said, I think this, and also the animation still holds up. I still think like I would watch this over say modern animation films or like majority of Sony picture animation films. I don't know, Spiderverse, or like some of the Disney films that that are not good, cringe. But I think people like to hit on Shrek the Third because, it's the meme. Next up is Silence of the Lambs. Fantastic movie. Looks great on 4K. Not much to say. I think everyone knows what to expect from Silence of the Lambs. This and Red Dragon are great. Yeah, like I there's not much to say. Like that's the thing. I know I'm kind of skimming over some movies because there's not much for me to add on for say like very good movies. Like because I think everyone has said their piece. Unless I have something interesting to say, then I'm not gonna say too much. Up next is Sleepy Hollow. This is the Tim Burton horror. I guess it's a horror movie with Johnny Depp. It's good. I would say it's not one of his better films in my opinion because it's like you're sort of feeling the need of wanting more because there's some really good scenes, there's some really good kills. It's kind of cool to see the headsman, the headless horseman, trying to kill people and decapitating people. The story gets a bit convoluted though with the witch. I like Johnny Depp in the movie, but he also feels a bit like I feel that he's a bit of an afterthought. It's definitely a unique way to adapt Sleepy Hollow, and it's still a fun movie to watch. Like Tim Burton is he knows how to drip style. And in general, it's a good movie. Like, but don't go in thinking it's going to be this like amazing this is like going to change the whole this is like Tim Burton's best. It's a pretty decent movie from his. Up next, we have Soul. I think this is very solid. Not the particularly fan of the third act, but still, I think it's it has a very good theme. It's a bit tearing over here. That's unfortunate. I'm not, thankfully the humor is not as cringe as the trailers made it out to be. I didn't really like the sort of antagonistical ghost thing that's going after them. I think they should have done something different with that. I think it's a very ambitious movie. I'll say that, because it's trying to sort of top Coco in terms of let's try to be doing a very mature story, but I don't think it's as successful. I don't know. It's because they were trying to be more abstract or more ambiguous compared to Coco, which feels more tight, in terms of what they're trying to go for. But in general, I think it's it's still a pretty good Pixar movie. It's strange though. People sort of forgot this movie even came out. Again, it came out on Disney Plus during the pandemic, but it's people talk about Turning Red. People talk about what was it Luca. People love Luca. People don't I think more people love Luca than Soul, and I think that just goes to the direction of they were trying to be a bit more ambitious with the movie. I think you have to sort of you can tackle those these themes of mortality and what is the meaning of life, stuff like that, but also if you're going to make it a bit ambiguous in nature, I think it's going to leave not a lot of people super satisfied. All right, next up we got Spaceballs. This is a classic parody of Star Wars and just sci-fi films in general. Watching it recently, it still holds up. Is it I would say it's one of the best comedies ever made, but it's still very entertaining. Obviously, if you have no idea what the movies or stuff that they're parodying, then this is not going to be good, because you're not gonna if you don't really care for Star Wars, and that's the thing. It's mainly Star Wars. It's a Star Wars parody, but there's some stuff like Star Trek and things like that. But if you do not care for Star Wars, which I know there are people who haven't even watched Star Wars. You can't just watch this movie and think, oh yeah, I completely get the joke. So there's that. Here comes a masterpiece right here, and that is Space Jam. Come on, Sam, and welcome to the jam. Some people like this movie, some people hate this movie. I think this is this is just a fun movie overall. It's Michael Jordan, the Looney Tunes. I don't know what you expect. This isn't Oscar-winning stuff, which we'll get to later. And yeah, I think a lot of people generally do seem to like the first movie, even if it's just completely insane. There's it's nonsense. But I think that's sort of the point, and that's the fun of it. You got the biggest star in the world at the time, Michael Jordan. Well, not as an actor, but as a sports, as an athlete. He was the biggest at the time. In a movie that was just based off a commercial, and it's insane. It's insane. But that's just kind of the charm of it. A lot of people will not say this by the way, Space Jam looks great on 4K with the 2D animation live action. Same with this, which is Space Jam: A New Legacy on 4K. Everyone hated this movie, which is weird because when they announced this years ago, I think people were looking forward to it. But I also think that was also because LeBron James's reputation wasn't as polarizing at the time. People really liked him, and then people don't like him, or people do like him. It's just it's weird. And also it's weird that people are acting like this movie is going to be a Best Picture winner, because when the movie came out, people hated it, which is weird. It's why? I don't know what you guys were expecting. From a Space Jam 2. Were you expecting Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse? I don't know. But regardless, I think it's fun. It's not as good as the first. I mean, in terms of like that, the charm is going to be different, of course, because it's modern. Some people don't like the modern stuff. Not everything works in this movie for sure. There's not, the humor can be a bit cringe. And the story's nonsensical, but I think also it knows that it's a really ridiculous movie and it's trying to have fun with itself. And I think that's the thing. I think people, when they watch this movie are taking it too seriously when, it's freaking Space Jam with LeBron James. I don't know what you came to expect, but it's fun. I appreciate they have 2D animation, and that's the thing. People just sleep on that. Oh yeah, 2D animations in this movie. I don't care. It's weird. I feel they could have been doing some things differently. Like obviously, people don't like the villain team should have been actual Warner Bros. Characters. Also, why the hell the Warner Bros. Characters there, but they don't do anything? It's like, okay, but do you want the Warner Bros. Characters to be in your face about it, or do you just want them to just be searched in the background? I don't want to debate about this movie. It's sort of like New Mutants, where I can debate about how the movie's not as bad as it is, but we can't do this all day because this video is not about that. Next up is Speed, classic action movie. Very good up until the third act. The third act gets a bit repetitive. Like after the bus, spoiler, after the bus is done and the subway chase happens, it gets really like, it's not bad. It just becomes a bit on the generic side because now all the things that you saw are now just your typical 90s action. But the stuff on the bus is great. Like, it's a fun movie when it's all about the bus. With that said, Keanu Reeves is okay in the movie, and Dennis Hopper's great. Great 90s classic action. This is stuck here. Spider-Man Into the Spiderverse. Not much to say. A lot of people think it's a masterpiece. I'm not going to go on that level. It's definitely up there. It's definitely close to being a 10 out of 10 in my opinion. I just think some of the villains could have been a bit improved. I think Kingpin, like, some people are like, this is a good villain. Some people, but I firstly think it's a bit of a joke. Oh, look how big and fat he is. I think I get the backstory of how they were trying to do the theme, but it just doesn't, because there's a lot that happens in the movie. And that's good for the fact that for so many things and characters in the movie is as great as it is. But I do think that the villain could have been a bit more of a better, it could have been more, that's the thing. I think it could have toned some things down a bit, so that way everything's pitch perfect. Instead, it's just let's just have, go balls to the walls. Everything is on in the movie, which is, for the most part, that it works out for them, great. But then you have, I don't think the villains were the best suit, which some people argue will disagree. Point is that I still think it's a great movie. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10, though. But this isn't a 10 out of 10, though, because I actually think it's a bit weaker than the first one, and that is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Some people think it's just on par. Some people think it's not as good. I'm on the latter camp, mainly because I don't like cliffhanger movies when when there's no set conclusion, especially when the movie just ends. There is no conclusion to the movie. The movie just ends, which is the worst type of way to do a cliffhanger. Fellowship of the Ring, is not a cliffhanger. The story did end. It's just sort of a and it's an end, but there could be a continuation in terms of the adventure's not done, but the story that has been told in the movie is done. Here it's let's just cut the story right at when things were starting to happen. I do like some of the stuff. I do like some of the humor. I do like the references, some of the side cast. But I think also some things were a bit of a weird decisions. Why are some characters part of the good team? Like the digital Spider-Man girl who saved Miles for no reason. It's there's something I think it has a bit less focus. I like Spot. I like, what's his name? Oscar, Spider-Man 2099. I kind of want to know what they're doing with him in the last movie. And I get it. A lot of this movie is really reliant on what happens in the last movie. But I also think that because we're not going to see the third movie for years, and we only have a cliffhanger type of movie like this, even Infinity War ends. Yes, it's a cliffhanger, but the story ends. That the story that they're telling ends. Not the story that we're getting told right now is halted because we decided that's where we halt the movie. I don't like those type of cliffhanger endings. Hmm. Next up, Spider-Man No Way Home. I do have the other Spider-Man films, but it is in a later video, you'll see. This is a great movie. It's definitely flawed. There's some plot holes for sure. It is a very plot-holy movie. But it is definitely a fun movie with the fan service and the crossover aspect of the movie. It's great to see these characters again. A great way to end that character, Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the universe with him just being back by himself again. I'm not gonna say this is an amazing movie. This is still great. It is definitely a flawed movie if you're going to plot hole wise though. Like it's a very you can pull a lot of nitpick stuff out of it. But still, very good Spider-Man movie. Up next is Split. This is a fantastic movie. I know some people don't like the whole DID premise of split personality killer and everything like that. Fair enough, but I just love Jason McAvoy's performance. I love the thriller suspense scenes. The ending is very unique. I like that not the whole Unbreakable tie-in, but more of the fact that the villain gets away, the girl survives but doesn't triumph really. She just survived barely, and even though we do see. What's her name? I'm forgetting her name. Anna Taylor, not like the actress Anna Taylor-Joy. I just forget the name in the movie that she plays in. Which, by the way, this is one of Anna Taylor-Joy's earlier films, which is I think it's this movie and The Witch that brought her up into stardom, which is worthy note. Overall, I think this is one of Shyamalan's great best films, and it's still even if you don't care about the Unbreakable trilogy. This is still a very good standalone, psychological thriller movie. So, I think it's good. Next up is Stand By Me. This is a classic. I'm not gonna say it's the most amazing movie out there. It's a coming of age story done right, where not much is really happening story-wise. It's a little adventure movie, but the themes that is being told is very potent, and you have this childlike innocence, but also a bit of the raunchy side, and then the ending is just kind of this. It hits you in the feels. The kid actors are great. It's just a very pleasant. You have a little bit of tragedy in the movie. It's a coming of age story, and I think it's one of the best coming of age stories that I've seen. There are some that are not as good. Like Boyhood, for example. I'm not a fan of that movie because I think it just goes all over the place. This is how you do a coming of age story. Almost done. We have The Suicide Squad. I don't have much to say about this. I know not a lot of people love it, but considering the fact that James Gunn is now in charge of DC, there's a reason why he is. This movie's great. Not some people don't like the Harley Quinn aspect in the movie with the whole president guy. I think that does take up the story a little bit, but other than that, I do like the themes of the movie. I do like the cast. I do like the action. I do like the R-rated violence and humor. It was the revival that DC needed. It's a shame though that it means they have to reboot everything. But I hope that at least some of the aspects the Suicide Squad characters stay on because they were great. Next up is Sully. If you don't know, this is the movie about the guy who Sully, the pilot who had to crash land into the Hudson River because of a aircraft issue with the birds. And the entire movie is mainly, aside from the reenactment, is just the court procedurals. And it may not be the most engaging. First of all, it is a short movie, which is thank God, because this is Clint Eastwood. He tends to make a bit longer movies, but this is just a little over an hour and a half, which, considering the fact that it is just mainly a court procedural movie, is very refreshing. It's what you see is what you get. I'm not going to say this is an amazing movie, oh my God, you have to check this out. This is Clint Eastwood's best. I think I've seen better films. Richard Jewell, I think, is fantastic. But, for what the story is about, I think this is as good as you can get. Because it's not you have to make a 3-hour movie about why Sully, was gonna be arrested or dismissed from his career over it. But anyway, and the last movie we have today is Superman Red Son, which is the adaptation of the classic comic line. Very good for the most part adaptation. They did change a little bit during the ending, but this is a great movie. The DC animated films can be a bit underrated at times, and I think this is a very good story that they told. It's a shame we never got a live action version of Red Son. I think Red Son is a fantastic story in general in DC. And the animation looks fine on 4K. Not the best animation out there, but still pretty good. And yeah, like I think you should check out Superman Red Son if you haven't got the chance. Go in blind because it is a very interesting story. And with that wraps it up for this video. Thanks for watching. I might have to do an up. I'll say this: there is a movie that I will have to address in a short that is, late edition. You'll see by tomorrow, by Monday, around there. I got to still, have the movie yet because I'm getting it delivered. But that said, thanks for watching and hope to see you guys next time. So have a good day.